Hello and welcome everyone, my name is Drewlik and this is my review for episode 8. Now this is going to be completely unscripted and unedited, so it's just going to be kind of my raw thoughts, and I'm just going to push that out there, and that's that. So I recently saw the movie again, and I wasn't planning on doing that. I had really mixed feelings after first viewing it at the premiere, and I didn't think that I wanted to give Disney more of my money, but I did anyways, so that's my bad. And yeah, it's just I kind of get into it. And yeah, I had really mixed feelings about the movie. Didn't think it was like really good, really brilliant, but I didn't think it was like horrible either. It was just really like just like a really mixed bag. It was kind of lukewarm about the whole movie. Lukewarm is a funny pun with Luke, you know. And yeah. It was just weird. It was weird. I had to like kind of brood on it for 3 days, like think about certain aspects of it. Some things were really good, some things were really bad, and then I just want to watch it again because it's like, you know, I'm just gonna really like try to analyze what I think and how it is watching it a second time, because that really changes the movie as well if you see it like a second time, if it has rewatchability. So I did that. Did that yesterday, and now I'm kind of like ready for my final verdict. So. There's a really big problem in this movie. A really big, huge plot hole. Like it's massive. It's like, as in, like 70% of the movie is completely voided by this plot hole. Bad. That kind of bad, and nobody's talking about it. That's the weirdest reason about it. Everyone I see here, like I kind of view myself as a metacritic. You know, I always look at other people's criticisms and I try to address them, like which is more accurate, which is less accurate. Everyone who's against this movie says that it's either paced really weirdly or just ruins the childhood. And I'm going to go into that later, but that's not the main problem. It's just incompetently made. Like the movie is really bad in one aspect, and that is Vice Admiral Holdo. Like she's so incompetent as a leader. It's impossibly incompetent. It's literally maddening how bad that particular character interaction is. Now, you could say that the plot is kind of contrived in this movie, and, you know, spoilers, by the way, but, I mean, it's in the title. Yeah, the plot is really contrived. That is a given. It's an interesting premise that the ship is, like, moving at the same pace that the chasers are moving. It gives, like, this immediacy of danger, while at the same time having, like, enough time to hatch up a plan and do something against it. So you kind of feel that helplessness. As I said, it's kind of contrived, but it doesn't make it particularly bad. Like, it doesn't have to be like a perfect, like, realistic depiction of reality. It's a Star Wars movie after all, so, you know, that can work out if it's an interesting premise enough. You know, you have enough time for the characters to interact, and the problem is they didn't utilize that correctly, but it's an interesting premise nonetheless. So I have no grime with that. You know, that's okay. It's a bit weird, but it's different. I like it. I really like it. You know, I had big fears at the opening title crawl when I saw that the last paragraph was that their base has to be evacuated and they're running away. And I'm just like, oh my god, it's going to be episode 5 all over again. Fuck me. They're just going to do that again, and it's going to be bad. And they didn't. I mean, they kind of did, but they put the main battle to the end instead of the beginning. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in later as well. I'm kind of all over the place with this, and and I was kind of happy that it was a very different premise. It wasn't about evacuating a base. It wasn't about getting away. It was really like about that they were basically lost and hopelessly lost. So, and they really needed to get away. So why is Vice Admiral Holdo the worst thing to ever happen to Star Wars cinema? Even though this is kind of a hyperbole. This is because it is really bad. It's just really bad how she leads and how she presents herself and how she acts. Because even if your message in this movie is that you don't need a hot-headed flyboy, you still kind of do not want the entire rebellion wiped out just by happenstance, by circumstance, and this is basically what happens. So bear with me here. I need to maybe backtrack a few seconds here. Basically, the only reason why all of their transports are wiped out at the end, like 70 or 80% of them, The only reason why that happens is because Vice Admiral Holdo, who is the purple-haired lady, doesn't want to tell, for some reason, doesn't want to tell Poe Dameron her plan. And that is the entire reason. That's why that happens. That's the chain of events that happened. Now, you can either blame Poe for that, because he's kind of hot-headed, and you could do that, or you could blame Vice Admiral Holdo for that. Because there's no particularly good reason why you would act in that kind of manner. And these are two people you can blame for this. But the movie doesn't do that. The movie just glosses over it. It's like, yeah, it's fine. Half of them are wiped out. It's just happening here. And that is what really, really, really sits wrong with me. It's just like consequenceless. Like it's a tragic happening. It's a tragic occurrence that this happened, and it's just treated like it's random, like nobody caused it. No, people caused this. This happened for a reason. Just think about it. They do, and they go on this suicide mission with, they go to Canterbite, they find the hacker, they board the ship, and the hacker sells away the information because they are caught, because they did like a Hail Mary attack. They did an absolute Hail Mary attack on this power junction to get away, because they felt trapped, they felt cornered, they felt helpless. And they only felt that, and they only felt so helpless and cornered because nobody said, look, we have a plan. That's a really, really, really big plot thing going on there. And the thing is, it could work. It could work. There are movies where this works, where like tragedy happens. Tragedy just happens because the characters are miscommunicating or they can't communicate. That's the most important thing about it. This is only tragic when they can't communicate. Best example is like the cheating husband. Like a classic romance story. Like there's a woman and a man, and the man is like very secretive because he's like preparing for the anniversary or something, and the woman thinks, yeah, he's probably cheating. He's very secretive, and the more she probes, the more she thinks what's happening, the more secretive he gets because he doesn't want to spoil the surprise. So she gets really erratic and maybe kills herself or maybe cheats herself because she can't live with him being dishonest, disloyal. And the tragedy therein lies that they haven't talked about it, and that they have assumed that their respective motives are different than what they really are. And that is wherein the tragedy lies. That's really what is bad about this. Or like Romeo and Juliet, where they both, spoilers, but they both kill themselves at the end just because they couldn't communicate their plan to each other. And that is tragic, because the audience understands their motives, both of them, and you can't help it, and it just happens, and it's just tragic because that both of them want to be happy, but they can't be. And this does not happen in Last Jedi, and you know why? Because on 3 different occasions, Poe Dameron goes right into her face and asks her, "Do you have a plan?" He just straight up. That's the only thing he wants to know. He just wants to know, do you have a plan? That's the only thing he wants to know is just, do you have a plan? And she does not answer him at all, just for no reason. Now you could say, you could do several things here. You could either say, well, maybe it's tragic because it is a certain clash of personalities, so it's really like it's characterized that way. She doesn't like his hot-headedness, and maybe she's a really arrogant leader. I wouldn't know why you would be like so, but it could be like a clash of personalities. So she doesn't want to give him the satisfaction. She thinks he's out of line, and he doesn't want to. She doesn't want to like lay bare all of her inner workings or anything. Maybe she didn't have a plan until then, and she didn't want to be exposed like that, And so in the first confrontation, fine, why not? In the second confrontation, she says. That he says basically that she's a traitor to the resistance, and that is kind of a moment where, even though you are kind of like conceited about your own ego and the fact that somebody just barges into your bridge and is an asshole to you, you kind of still want to clear things up so people don't do something stupid. It's not like he's he's like a spy or someone disloyal to the resistance. He's like your eighth pilot. Like, you at least owe him like an explanation, I think, you know? Because I think Poe isn't hot-headed here. He acts completely reasonable. He's completely reasonable. He just wants to know, hey, what are we going to do about this? They are shooting on us for hours. What are we going to do about this? And she's silent. She just doesn't fucking care. And yeah, so that's that. And even so, as I said, even if you go by this approach, right, where you say it's a tragic clash of character, so that they both can't admit that. And they both can't be honest to each other, which, by the way, the terrible basis for operations in the resistance fight. But, you know, it might happen. It might be. You know when you say that you have a plan? When people with blasters are standing right in front of you and saying that there's a mutiny. You know, that's kind of the moment. That's kind of the moment where you say, wait, we actually have a plan. It's not suicide. You know, that's the point where you say that. You don't just stay silent and like begrudgingly say, "I hope you know what this implies." You know, that is stupid on so many levels, because what would have happened if Poe didn't turn off the lights in the hangar and they wouldn't like re-mutiny their mutiny? What would have happened then if he just went through with the jump to light speed? They would have all died. So even in the interest of self-preservation, you should have said something at some point. So that argument is out of the window. So the second argument is maybe she's just a completely egomaniacal bitch. And that could work as well, you know, just having a completely incompetent leader. And that's the only reason why this happens. But that doesn't happen either, because the movie turns it around and says like that she knew all along that there was a plan and that they just needed to have some trust, you know, they just needed to have some that was all. And they give her a hero's death. And I just look at it, at the hero's death, and I'm like, what the fuck? That bitch caused literally every problem. I don't want to have a, like, am I supposed to feel bad for her that she's gonna die on this ship now? Like really? Like all she needed to do was say, look, Poe, don't do something stupid or hot-headed. Like, it's just insane to me. It's like literally insane to me. And the biggest problem with that as well is at some point, you know, because this is a classic character arc. You know, somebody like Poe Dameron is hot-headed and loses his entire fleet, and he still goes through with it. You know, he still hasn't learned his lesson. And characters like that need tragedy, and that happens. You know, you get older and wiser through failure, and especially so if you're very empathetic and passionate about your colleagues, and your colleagues die because of you. That is like the worst thing that can happen to you as like a general in war. The worst thing that can happen to you like in a resistance fight is like because of your own failures, because of your own actions, people die. And that is like a pivotal moment where Poe should realize, okay, I have to do things differently. And he does do things differently, but that moment didn't happen. Like the only thing that you can kind of have is while he's on the transports, he kind of sees that Admiral Holdo had a plan. He kind of repeats her wording again, so he respects her, which is fine, I guess, you know, because he now sees that she had greater wisdom and possessed greater wisdom than he had given her credit for. So that's fine. But there's no, oh fuck, I just killed 70% of everyone I ever knew. Like, that is a big thing. Like maybe you could say that because of like everything happened so fast and there's no real time to reflect on it, and he doesn't know that the only reason why they decloaked them was the hacker on the ship, because like Finn and Rose are still like on the shuttle transiting, so he doesn't know that yet. But the problem is with him not knowing that is, how is he going to learn his lesson? Like, if there's not an oh what the fuck moment in like episode 9 or something where he like learns all of these things and why actually everyone died, there has to be like some terrible repercussions for that emotionally for him. Because just imagine that you and your mutiny and your like silly little plan to do something has killed everyone, just everyone. And and the problem is the movie doesn't treat it as such. The movie doesn't treat it because basically Poe and Admiral Holdo are both responsible for that. They are literally the only two people responsible for that. Nobody else. And the movie just treats it as a tragedy, just like as an unfortunate occurrence, like something that just happened. They're shooting on our transports. Oh, unlucky. That's kind of unlucky that happened. And it's not the case. There's a clear reason why that happened, and it's not addressed. And that is, I don't know. It's just wrong. It just feels wrong. And the movie even and the reason why I talked to such great length about this is because this voids 70% of what happens in the movie. Really, you can put 70% of the movie. You can just take it out. Because you don't need Canto Bight, you don't need the end fight, because they would have never known that their cloaked transports are slipping away. So there's no end fight, there's no end confrontation, there's no death of Luke, there's no Canto Bight scenes. They can just chill for a few hours on the ship if they just had talked to each other. So that's kind of the state of plot hole we're at. 70% of your movie is voided by one honest conversation between two people. And the reason why this conversation didn't happen wasn't that they had no opportunity to talk, which would have been real tragedy, because that's, as I explained, that's how tragedy works. If there was no opportunity to talk, no, she just literally didn't want to tell him, and that's the reason why everyone dies. So that's that. And as I said, the movie doesn't treat that correctly. If the movie treated that correctly, that particular instance, that they both just screwed up so horribly, and they're both completely enamored and struck by and taken aback by this tragedy that happened because of them, and they really feel responsible, then it would be okay. There has some emotional weight here. They did something really dumb and really bad and really unnecessary, but they are reaping the consequences of it. And they feel bad because of it. That's good. But no, they don't. They just go on their merry rebel ways and enjoy themselves. I mean, as much as you can enjoy yourself, while dying. And it's just played off so casually. He now is the perfect leader. Poe Dameron at the end of the thing, his arc is complete. No guilt, no anything. He's just a good leader who knows when to go back now. He's learned his lesson through blood, through terrible, terrible resistance blood. But that's not mentioned. He's just a better person now. Be happy for him. What the fuck? So that's that, and nobody talks about that. And I think that's the biggest, the worst offense in this entire movie, because that is just pure incompetence. And I think it's made even worse by the fact that they say that they want to have strong female leaders, and all of the interviews where Laura Dern was like, women lead differently than men, and we need to have this kind of leadership. Do they know how leadership works? Leadership isn't about power and who has the best put-downs. Leadership is about competence and leading by example. At least the good leaderships and good hierarchies are. You can always have a bad hierarchy and bad tyranny, and everybody always assumes the power structure is a tyranny, which is completely wrong. Power and leadership work through competence. And so they then go in to this movie and have this strong female leader who is just completely incompetent, just completely bad at being a leader. And they're like, yeah, woman power. And I'm like, it's okay to have a bad character, but then herald her as the best example for what female leadership should look like when being the worst shit that has ever happened to leadership. That's not good. I mean, if you're going to lead a resistance like Laura Dern, then, have half of your people die. Just enjoy. Just really enjoy. Insane. And that's in stark contrast to actually good leadership that Leia has in the first trilogy, where she just, she takes matters into her own hands. That's why she's such a strong character. That's how an actually strong female character works. She just takes the gun, she shoots the hatch open and goes into the trash compactor. She just does it herself. She leads by example. She's a strong woman. She's not someone who is so into her own ego or into her own, I don't know, What would you even call that? How could you be this incompetent? I'm just at a loss for words. That you, like, somebody is in front of your face and asking you if you have a plan, and you're just like, yeah, I don't need to tell you. I don't need to tell you. Because you're just a captain. A heroic captain that has saved the resistance on numerous occasions, but I don't owe you an explanation. Fuck you. It's like, yeah. Good leadership. Anyways, so the rest of the movie, I was kind of on the fence about, because I really didn't understand Luke. Like, I really didn't understand him as a character, because he's so different from the original trilogy. And I think the main complaints, and I have no idea why, like, everyone who's saying that the movie sucks or the movie is really bad or has really strange things in it, I think, like, the best example is, like, I have waited 20 years or 30 years to look at Luke suck green milk from a tit. That's of course that's a hyperbole, and that's kind of funny, and it's kind of true in some sense. I understand why people see that as such an offense to them, because it is really disgusting. But I think, like, as a Metacritic, as somebody who likes to criticize critics and look at what people have to say, I really think that the main criticisms of the film are just nostalgia, and it's kind of wrong, because it doesn't see the film as its own thing, as its own merits, because it has these old characters. Like, people are complaining that R2-D2 had no role in the movie. I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. Or they're complaining that Luke dies and he shouldn't have died, or they're complaining that Rey's parents are just nobodies, and having a huge discussion about that, about these little things that have, like, no bearance on this actual movie and the plot of it, because these scenes were actually really good, like the training scenes of Rey and Luke together. I mean, they didn't have any actual training in them, so that was kind of bad. I would have liked to have him actually train her, not just, like, do nothing with her and just tell her a few things about the Force, But yeah, so that was it. The people also said that these are basically two movies, like, spliced together and intertwined, and that's why they are paced so weirdly. I didn't think they were paced weirdly. I mean, of course, the movie is quite long, and I wouldn't say it gets dull at times, but I don't know, like, rewatching some of it, it's like, yeah, I mean, some things linger on for quite some time, but I think, like, what happened in the edit was it was cut down to a reasonable length. I don't actually agree that it is paced, like, slowly or paced weirdly. I think it's actually paced quite reasonably, and then interestingly as well, the way that they did, like, certain scenes and the emotional weight that they had. So yeah. So really, I'm basically just gonna discard that kind of thing. And again, so the role of Luke, it's really different from how he was portrayed in the original trilogy, and it takes some time to actually get used to that. Because on first viewing, I just didn't like it. I didn't like him. Just thought, what the fuck is this? Why is he such a cynic? What the fuck is going on? And it gets better on rewatching it, because you kind of see how it's going to be. You don't have the kind of expectations that you have from him, and you can kind of see the character as he is. It doesn't help that there are some weird, really weird tonal inconsistencies in the entire movie with the humor, which is going on there, which I'm going to go into later as well, that just makes these entire scenes like such a weird, and as I said in the beginning, such a mixed bag. Because you don't have an old grumpy person who really is a cynic and really is grumpy and really wants no, like, deal in all of this, who at the same time is, like, kind of a troll, kind of funny, and makes jokes and shit. Because either you are absolutely world weary and you, like, don't want anything to do with anything, or you're kind of like, like a little funny old troll like Yoda was, like he was basically, like, insane with age, and that was fun. But Luke isn't like that. He understands quite clearly and what he's about, but still he's like, it always feels like Mark Hamill plays himself in a way, he doesn't actually play a character. Like he just feels like Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is just old Luke now, and Mark Hamill when he was young was this like young person with a lot of spunk, as to quote Snoke, this young person with a lot of spunk, a lot of hopes and dreams, because that was his personality at the time as well. And it just really feels like Mark Hamill was just playing himself again. That's kind of what I took out of it, So yeah, but it works. Also, the problem is that a lot of the very, very, very important things that Luke says are said like in like side sentences, like minor sentences that aren't really acknowledged as such, such as when Rey doesn't resist the dark side pull. She's like, he didn't even resist that at all, and it's not like the movie doesn't treat it like as this is like really, really pivotal and important for the character development. It's just like, yeah, I'm just like minorly disappointed. So I don't know. So again, coming back to the tone of the movie is just all over the place. Like they just had too many jokes. It's like this Rogue One problem where they just put in too many jokes. It's just Star Wars always was funny. Star Wars always had comic relief, but it was just too much, and it was like too gratuitous at times. And it was especially offensive when it came in when Chewie flew in with the Falcon, and we had not one but 3 different reaction shots of Porgs doing random shit. It's just like, really, did that really need to happen? Like we had some humor in the original trilogy, like C-3PO. He does a good job with like telling him the odds and shit. And the reason is just imagine. And the problem is it always takes a step back for when the action happens, because the action is always treated, the action and the emotional engagement is always treated as something serious, and it's not treated as something serious at times in this movie. Which, again, it was what I'm saying, that like, the tone is all over the place. Like, some jokes are okay, but some are like, what the fuck? Like, for example, there's like this little slapstick thing going on. With BB-8 repairing the weapons in something that should be high stakes, but it's not high stakes because she's just like a fun little robot, just engaging the weapons again with his 1 million arms, and then he uses his head because it's funny, because that's how it works. Fun, isn't it? It's like, what? And another thing where like 3 different reaction shots of Porgs. What happens in the cockpit with the Porgs? And I don't want to see what happens with the cockpits and the Porgs. I want to see what the Falcon does with all of this armada of TIE fighters. What the fuck is happening with the Porgs? I don't know. I don't want to know. So that happened. I didn't like that. It's akin to the Millennium Falcon helping out the Death Star trench in Episode 4, and instead of like having Han like yelling, "Yoo-hoo! We did it!" It's just like him and C-3PO in the cockpit, and C-3PO saying like, "Oh my, what happened here?" Like, does that need to be there? Does a joke need to be there in a surprise moment where the Falcon comes in to save everything again? Did that need to happen? I don't know. And like another thing where it's just slapstick at times, like where Rey cuts off the throne. I didn't think she meant to do that. So she clearly is imbalanced, and she clearly doesn't know how to control her powers. So that is a really pivotal moment, isn't it? That's a really, really pivotal moment. And immediately after that happens, they just have this little joke in there where the stone falls down onto the wheelbarrow of these other 2 characters. And it's funny, because why not? It's not scary. I personally think it's really, really scary that Rey has no control of her powers and she just like went overboard. And it's not treated as something serious. It's just like, yeah, she did a mistake. Ha ha ha. Bless Rey. And here's another joke. Like, really? Like, is that your idea of conflict? Because you have to see. also the way the reason the Force is treated in this. So the Force always follows certain rules in these movies, and they're kind of breaking the rules and changing the rules and making it more like magic. And I don't know why everyone gets the Force wrong. Like, it's so easy. Like, every writer in the extended universe did a really, really, really good job of conveying what the Force is and how it works, and it just feels like they know better what that is than Disney writers. I have no idea what's going on. Or like, generally, even George Lucas. Because everyone was complaining about midichlorians, and that has just like technologized and explained away the Force and the mysticism of it. And I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, they just made it into magic in the new trilogy. It's like magic, and you don't need to train it, you don't need to get strong in it, you just have it. And it happens, and they're breaking rules with the Force. Like, for example, when they have this bond, they can see each other, which is also very contrived. Like, they can just see each other but not the surroundings, so the location of where Rey isn't revealed, but at the same time they can see each other and can see their, like, I don't know, like their facial expressions, which is not important at all, but somehow it's important. And of course they can also fit in a cheap joke of where he's half naked, and it's like, ha ha ha, well, funny, she can see him. So that's kind of all over the place. So like this very cerebral thing, and this very something that you just experience, like the Force, gets into something very real world, where you can see people and not just like feel them. There's a reason why when people like do the Force thing and they close their eyes, is because they are in touch with their surrounding, they're feeling shit and stuff, you know. But now it's like, yeah, it's like a Force bond, and you actually physically see somebody. It's like, you know. So they're doing this. The Force bond it's like weird, and also objects can manifest themselves. Now we know that the dice are an illusion of Luke at the end, but the water in the hand of Kylo Ren when it's raining seem to be real. So either there's like matter that can be transported through the Force, or it's also just a Force illusion on his hand, which is the only thing that would make sense in the context of the Force. So there's a Force illusion of water on the hand, and it's like, why did that need to be a thing? Like, really, like that kind of filmmaking stuff is like literally magic things, you know, like supernatural things, where things are unexplained, things are really, really weird, but it makes sense because it's just magic or like supernatural stuff. The Force has straight rules, and it only makes sense in the context of these rules, and it's really important that these rules exist and are consistent, and are just changing them around all this movie long, you know, and the entire first trilogy as well. So that's kind of difficult, you know. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, you know, it's like another point of contention. It's another difficult thing that this movie is doing. That's not entirely something I'm on board with. But you know, it's not like terrible. It's just, you know, just something that happened. So yeah. So these are like the main things. It's really weird how Luke is. It's really bad how the interaction between Holdo and Poe is. I think it works though as a whole. It does work. Rewatching it, I like Luke's role better. I understand it better. It works a lot better, and I think it just has a higher rewatchability than you would think. And so coming to the ending where he dies, I thought it was so brilliant. It was so brilliant that he was this old, wise master who completely plays Kylo Ren. You know, he just completely plays him and just is a hologram. And that was so good. That was so good. That was just so good. He's just like a Force illusion. That was really, really nice. And then he just dies. And I was like, well, you know, that is really, really, really consequenceless, because for having such a nice scene, they just have him die anyways. Like, they were afraid that they put in like an episode 4 Ben Kenobi moment. And they were probably also afraid that he's in 2 movies, and when he revisits, or like Rey revisits Luke or something, then he dies like Yoda in episode 6. So they didn't want to repeat that. So they said, you know what, we're going to do both. He's just going to fade away, like Yoda did in episode 6, but he's going to do it in episode 5, so to speak. And he's also going to sacrifice himself like Obi-Wan Kenobi did in episode 4, but not the same way, not physically. He's not going to be struck down, because that is too reminiscent. But at the same time, they're doing exactly that. So that's kind of something that is I really criticize as well, because they have this situation where it really makes no difference if he actually was there physically and died, or if he wasn't there physically and died. The only difference is that he kind of gets to choose, and like kind of his legacy remains intact. But it's still a sacrifice. It's still a sacrifice. So there's no like huge difference between it. Like, he still sacrifices himself. He still dies. He still dies as a consequence of Kylo Ren. It's just that he's even more frustrated than if he actually killed him. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I really think he should have stayed alive, and then just, don't know, like faded away at some other point. I don't know. Maybe it made sense for his arc. We need to have, like, that's the problem with like such an intermediary movie as Episode 8, because we really need to see 9 to make sense of what happens in this movie. So I really can't like give a good or bad verdict on it, because it only makes sense in the trilogy setting and what they do in 9. So, you know, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I can't tell. I can tell for sure though that Kylo Ren is a really good character. Like, Kylo Ren, they redeemed him. Like, he was like, I don't know, I didn't like him in Episode 7, but in Episode 8, like, everything makes sense retroactively. So a lot of things that maybe I don't like in this movie make sense retroactively in Episode 9. So, you know, I'm not gonna comment on that. I'm not gonna comment on this whole Luke thing, because it's too early to know. When the whole trilogy is out, I'm gonna say what I think about this arc. As I see it, you know, it's kind of weird that he still sacrificed himself, but you know, we're gonna see what it means. We're gonna see what it means. So yeah. Then let's just talk about a few scenes that were absolutely retarded and ridiculous, and a few scenes that were absolutely brilliant and I liked. And then just wrap it up, because I'm already talking for way longer than I actually wanted to talk about this movie. I just wanted to do like a really quick little thing. You know, that always happens when you do a quick little thing, just 40 minutes of rambling. Just a really quick little thing where I just wanted to talk about, how I experienced the movie, and what was like the main problem. So yeah, scenes that were really, really fucking bad. Leia Organa moving back into the ship by the Force. It was like she looked almost angelic in space, and I was kind of sad when seeing that, you know, and I think everyone else was sad when seeing that. And then she just survives. And it's this really contrived thing where instead of having, like, they could have just had her die. She didn't do anything for the rest of the movie, anything particular, you know. The only thing they really used her for was to have this big cinematic reveal, because, again, coming back to this entire Holdo and Poe dilemma, Admiral Holdo was also portrayed as a villainous character, so that we are surprised with her noble intentions. She's still thoroughly incompetent, but we have been surprised that she wasn't a traitor and everything was fine, and that actually, and you know how they revealed that? They revealed that through the Leia shot, when Leia went through the door, and everyone was surprised. Oh my god, Leia is actually against the mutiny, so she's actually on the side of Admiral Holdo, so she actually is better than we all thought. Oh my god, what's going on? So that's the only real thing they used Leia for. Leia didn't do anything after that. So, you know, like, she might as well die there. And I think it would have been better if she died there, because now she has to die without Carrie Fisher being alive in Episode 9, or they just don't have her, or she dies as a CGI character. I don't know, it's just going to be bad. And I just already know it's going to be bad. So that was a really bad scene. I didn't enjoy at all. Just really weird. Really weird also in context that Carrie Fisher is dead. That's also really, really, really weird. I didn't like that Rose at the end shoved away Finn out of the laser. It looked like such a hero's death, and it was built up as a hero's death, and they didn't do it. And he just like flew into him, like just imagine, how are you going to save someone? Yeah, I know how. I'm just going to fly into him with like a skiff speeder or whatever that thing was. I think I've forgotten the name of it. So she basically suicides herself into him. They both survive miraculously, right in front of the First Order. Nobody shoots them. They kiss each other. They share a moment while the fucking doors blasted open. And, many of these Rose Tico moments were just really, really sappy. I didn't like her character. I mean, I do like her character. I like her. I like the actress. I like the charisma that she portrays. Like, I think all the cast is really good. But just some of the lines she has are so sappy and so ridiculous, even for a Star Wars movie, that I can't really enjoy them. Like there's this moment where there's this ham-fisted morality on Canto Bight. I like the Canto Bight as a concept. I didn't like the way that they portrayed the morality in it. It was like really obvious, really superficial. So that was kind of like bad, and it didn't help that Rose Tico had like such incredibly stupid lines. Like just imagine that's like one of the main concerns of you. When you are in the middle of a war zone, of a battlefield, you just saved the life of somebody who wanted to sacrifice himself, and then you kiss him and say, this is how we're going to win. While you're losing, by the way. This is how we're going to win. Not by killing those who we hate, but by saving those who we love. Did you think of that while you were flying into him, or did you just make that up while you were lying half dead in the cockpit? Like, is that realistic? Is that something that people are going to say? Like, that's George Lucas worthy dialogue, man. That's really bad. And then, of course, she drags her across 2 kilometers of salt field while not being shot by anything, back to the resistance base. Okay. That's all I have to say to that. Okay, why not? Okay. Yeah, really bad scenes. Really, really bad scenes. I didn't like. Now more to things that I really, really liked. I really liked, I think the space battle in the beginning. That was interesting. It was well made. I didn't think it was brilliant at the first viewing, but the second viewing, just knowing the context and everything, I really liked that. That was really good. Everyone talks about the throne room scene and the changing up of Kylo's character. I think that's really, really, really good. That's just what they did with his character, what they did with Rey and him, and it was just really nice. I think Rey is still pretty one-dimensional as a character, but she's learning, she's doing her thing, she's learning her personality. I don't know. We have to see what 9 brings, but it's better. It's better than in 7. Really, really good. I liked the entire throne room sequence. I liked that Snoke dies. It's really ambitious. It was just good. It was just really, really good. It was really good, really well executed, really well made. I think Kylo Ren is completely scary because he's like a murderous psychopath. He's way darker than anyone has ever thought he actually was. It wasn't actually just Snoke who's controlling him, corrupting him. He's really, really, really dark, really bad. And I like that. It's really good. It's really, really, really strong, and it kind of confirms and betters his character that it was in Episode 7. So I like that. I also like the character of DJ, Benicio del Toro's character. That was really good. I just liked this morally grey, like a true grey character in Star Wars. How long do we have to wait for that one? I just loved it. He's like being called a traitor. And you're gonna pay for this, and you're wrong. And he's like, maybe. He doesn't care. He's like the perfect. He's like, I love it. Like that was. I want to see more of him. Maybe he's gonna be punished. Maybe not. But maybe he's just gonna be in this one movie and it's gonna go along his merry ways. I wouldn't care for that either way. I just love that character so much. I think it was one of the strongest characters ever in Star Wars. Literally that good. The only character who's better would be probably Han Solo, because he's like a charming smuggler, But that was really good. I liked that. I enjoyed that. Everything that DJ did was really good. That was nice. He's a real hacker man, a real moral conundrum, and I enjoyed that. I can't tell you enough how much I enjoyed that. The fact that he is not prone to any conviction, and that if he's, just the perfect sentence was don't be mad. Today you're getting blown up. Tomorrow it's going to be them. So yeah, it's nice. It's really just love it. Just love it. Just love that character, and yeah, that was really good, really good. So yeah, what are we left with? We have, of course, another bad thing is Phasma. Phasma, the reason, like, she's just a side character that she dies, or maybe she doesn't die, maybe she survives for episode 9. I don't know. It would be really bad if she comes back, but she's just consumed by flames and falling down. I don't know. I think she's just a very, very, very weak character. Not much is said about her. The only thing that's interesting about her is her armor. Literally, that's the only interesting thing. And yeah, I don't know. I feel really different about her. I just think she's underutilized in both movies. It's weird because Disney is just like trying to milk that with 1,000 little action figures, and like in the context of Disney and the way they try to market her. It's just really strange because there's such a dissonance between what she is in the movies and what she's marketed to be. So I don't think that she's inherently flawed as a character. She's just like a really, really, really minor side character that has been like blown way out of proportion by promotional material. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I just think I'm like really indifferent to her. So Phasma, whatever, who cares? I think BB-8 is a little bit overpowered, but he's charming, so, yeah. So, conclusion of all of this. I don't know. For a Star Wars movie, I think it's kind of incompetently made, really incompetently made. Like, the reason why the original trilogy was so very good is because they had actually classic filmmakers who knew how to construct a movie, and it really shows that they don't know, that these young directors, they don't know how to actually construct a logical movie, like from front to finish. The only reason why episode 7 was so competently made and had such a good structure is because it literally just copied the structure of episode 4. And that didn't happen in episode 5, and thusly the structure is really like all over the place. And it kind of shows because they are omitting certain scenes, and I really need to see what they edited out, because they had 3 hours in the first cut. They had 3 hours, and I really need to know what are the deleted scenes. This is going to be really interesting because that is going to change a lot. For example, there's one scene where there's just a scene missing. That is how Rey gets from Snoke's escape pod to the Millennium Falcon. I mean, I know it's supposed to be like a big surprise that she's on the Falcon and like helping everyone, and it's a fun thing. But like, just compare that to episode 4, where Han is in the Falcon and just appears and saves the day. The reason why that works is because it is his ship, and he was seen loading things into it, so it was already implied that he was kind of ready to get into it, and it's like really a surprise moment because you don't expect him to do it, but it makes perfect sense, you can kind of imply what happened. Everyone was really, really surprised in the theater when the Millennium Falcon showed up and Rey was on it, because they didn't show how any of that happened. And it was just like, yeah, she's there now. You can... And of course you can think about the rest. What probably happened is that she probably called the Millennium Falcon, and they probably met up in space. They docked. She went aboard the Falcon, and then they went down to the planet. That's probably what happened. But we don't see it. We don't know it. We don't know that happened. And it's just weird. It's just really, really weird. And the thing is, there's probably a scene in deleted scenes, and I'm just speculating here, but I'm pretty certain that there's going to be a scene where... they have like a 5-minute sequence of them docking and them boarding the ship, and that's going to be in there. And they just omitted that scene because it was way too long, and it didn't do anything for the movie, and the pacing was off. And the thing about that is you don't need to have it as a 5-minute scene, For example, the way in episode 6 that Luke gets from the Death Star to Endor is a 20-second sequence. You just see him boarding the ship exiting the Death Star, and him going towards Endor. And that's more than enough. You don't need to see how he lands. You don't need to... And of course, there was a reaction shot of him in the cockpit. So you just need to see who's on the ship, what the ship is doing, and where it's going. That's all you need. So all you would need is like a 20-second sequence of her like leaving on a ship, docking with the Millennium Falcon and just like boarding it, maybe boarding it for 5 seconds. I don't know, just like hugging Chewie. I don't know, maybe like kissing the pork. I don't care. And then just them going towards the planet, and that would be completely sufficient for like explaining the plot structure and the actual things that are going on. And I don't know, people don't do that. They just cut it and they cut it and they cut it and they cut it, and they think they're making it more streamlined, but they're making it more obscure, and they don't have these classic filmmaking techniques where they don't know how to do such a scene, where it's literally just an establishing shot of where characters are and where they're going, and you really need that to understand where your plot elements are going and where they're developing to, and so that kind of happens. So that's bad. Filmmaking is really bad, and they're just treating it as something really more than it really is. One of the other things that is kind of disappointing to me, and it was disappointing to me in episode 7, they did it very, very solidly, very safely. There was no like particularly artsy camera angles or interesting color choices, and it really looked like from the trailers, they had this one shot where they walk through that blasted door. They do this overhead shot, which is really interesting and really looks really different, with a lot of contrast, and the red contrast that they had in the throne room of Snoke. So that was, but the thing is, they showed these two scenes in the trailers, and I just thought, oh my god, if that is indicative of the entire movie, that's going to be so very good. And it's literally just these two scenes that have that. And then you have these like retarded directors going on interviews and saying, yeah, it's like a really artsy thing, and the color red is really important for this movie, and it's going to reoccur. And I'm like, dude, it's not. It's just a Star Wars movie. It's just like a silly action movie. Like, they didn't do anything. Because I'm somebody, I do enjoy art house movies. I watch them, I enjoy them, I consume them, and I have great pleasure in them. And it's not that. Like the fact that some of the movie's backdrops are red is not, it's not a thing. It's not an art house movie. And I would really like a Star Wars movie to have like that kind of artistic vision, where there's lots of style in it, and lots of like implications through colors and camera angles, and they're not doing that because it's not safe. It's not Star Wars. Star Wars has to be like this fun movie. So And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because they have marketed this as such, because I have no problem with it not being like an artsy movie. It doesn't have to be. I would like it to be one, but it doesn't have to be. I think it even worked better if it wasn't, because if you do it wrong, then it's going to be terrible, and you can't save it in the edit. So it's safer either way to just not do it. But the problem was that they said they are doing that, and they're not. They didn't do it. It's not special that they used red as a backdrop for one thing, and that they had one overhead camera shot, when the rest of the movie is just like panning shots of just everything that happens in the action. Anyways, enough of that. So yeah, in general, that just why am I talking for an hour about this particular movie? Why is the expectation for Star Wars so high? Can we even enjoy a Star Wars movie? I think, like having rewatched it, I feel a lot more positive about it. Of course, the aspect of like childhood ruinage is in there, and you can dislike the movie because it has ruined your childhood. But just view it not as a continuation of what these perfect movies in the 80s were. Just view it as their own movie in this, like their own set of movies in their own setting. And as such, they kind of work, and it's you just have to accept that it's something different. It's something really different, and I don't know why it is so hard. Like, I think the problem was because they had so many competent filmmakers. This very, very silly concept of like the Force. Like, just think about it. The Force is space wizardry. It's like space magic. And because it was treated so sincerely, and they made it so very honestly, it just felt like something really, really, really nice. And it doesn't really translate well when you make a movie very weirdly, and you have like all of this fandom behind it, and people really try and take it seriously, but at the same time, it's just a fun and silly adventure movie, and it shouldn't be more than that. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be more than just like a silly funny adventure movie, and it should be fun. Like Star Wars should be fun. You shouldn't have like 1 hour analysis of it, which is what I'm incidentally doing. You should just go and enjoy the movie, and I think as such the movie is enjoyable. It has some like you shouldn't go, like. I know of a lot of people who enjoy the movie because they like the characters. They like the new characters. They like the interactions of the characters. Like for me, I just complained like 20 minutes about one huge plot hole in the movie, which just really kind of tore down the fun and the experience I could have in it, because that's the way I watch movies. You know, I want to have my plot with a logical consistency. And many people don't need that. They can just enjoy a movie if it's a fun movie. So I can really understand why you would like this movie, and I like it as well for these aspects and these reasons. I just don't think the problem was that the original films, they were perfect at the same time. They were fun, they were silly, they had like really weird concepts, really like. Just think about it. The Force as like a space wizard stuff, really weird things. Yoda was a really weird character, and it all worked because it was like held together by a competent narrative. Like it was paced correctly. It was really well done. It was really solid. So they were perfect movies because they were fun movies that were good for a general audience, but at the same time they were competently made. And now you come into an era where people don't really know how to make movies competently anymore, and it shows. And people just complain all over. Like there's this thing where reviewers say like you can't please everyone anymore these days, and that's true to an extent. You know, I've seen reviews where people complain just the fact that R2-D2 is not in the movie. Like, why would he be in the movie? You know, I mean, it's like, of course you're not going to please anyone, but I think it would please a lot more people if your movie would actually work as a movie and not just as a Star Wars movie. And the only reason why people are watching it is because of like this huge hype, you know. And again, I don't think that the only reason this movie has merit is because of the Star Wars hype. I think it's a fun movie. As I said, I liked it. I even rewatched it. I paid another €10 just to watch it again yesterday. So it has some merit, you know. But again, it's really, really difficult because they aren't as good. They aren't as good as movies as some of the other things that are out there these days. And you just have to accept that when watching these movies. They are fun on their own merit. They are fun movies. I want to see the entire trilogy now. I need to see this new Star Wars 8 in context of Star Wars 9. I need to see where they're going with it. And yeah, that's that. That's all. And did I like it? Yeah, kind of. Really, I did like it. Did like it, yeah. But some things are just really bad in it. Some things are just really bad. And which really, really, really deteriorates from the movie is just like the plot holes. I didn't like that. I didn't like some scenes, so yeah. I think I can say more about this when episode 9 comes out and the entire trilogy as such is there and works in unison. Because it's like reviewing episode 5 without having seen episode 6. Like, how are you even going to do that? Because episode 5 doesn't even have an ending. You know, it's just that kind of fades out. And this movie like kind of does the same. It kind of has an ending, kind of doesn't. So yeah, you just have to like see how all of this unfolds. So sorry for being so ambiguous about ambiguous, not ambiguous. So sorry for being so ambiguous about what I think about this thing. It was just a really mixed bag. I enjoyed it. I think it's an enjoyable movie. I would see it again when it comes out on DVD, and to know how good it is, I have to see it in context of episode 9. So that's that. And as always, have a good one.